Welcome to Key Stock and Crypto channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And right now we have stocks up, even though all the tech companies are forecasting weaker earnings. Now we had Amazon stock lower as weak fourth quarter guidance. And we know they're not the only tech company with weak fourth quarter guidance. And AWS, Amazon Cloud business, just recorded its weakest growth to date. And guys, we know how important cloud is to the fourth industrial revolution. And just because growth slowed up doesn't mean you're not making billions. Remember, Amazon lost money for 10 years. The only side of the business that kept making money and growing was the cloud business. Now we have Intel announces up to $10 billion in cost reductions through 2025. And we know the market likes to hear things like that. As soon as you say you're cost cutting, your stock goes up. But remember, guys, these companies are making billions. Now we have the energy crisis, of course, and we see these oil companies are benefiting. And we know the Rockefellers benefit. They're going to benefit from the oil, and they're also leading the way for clean energy. So they're going to benefit off that. $1 trillion going this way, $1 trillion going that way. But we had Exxon recorded smashing profits. Also, Chevron profits soar. $11.2 billion in the quarter. Guys, if the consumer is paying more money, that means the corporations are profiting. And we know they've been profiting of all the chaos that's been going on for the past 3 years. Now, speaking of clean energy, we have EU strikes deal to ban the sale of new diesel and gasoline cars by 2035. So, guys, we're definitely seeing the clean energy agenda. We also see that in California. We're starting to see the main manufacturing of cars just stop making certain cars, period. Dodge stopped making this muscle car, and it's selling like hotcakes, but they stopped making it. So that just lets you know there's definitely an agenda behind it. That means that these companies are being incentivized not to make gas cars because we know it's all about the bottom line, the dollar. Now, guys, we had Apple beats, but don't forget the issues over in China. The same way that we have Tesla. Both of those companies either rely too much on sales or too much on China's manufacturing. Now, we have Pinterest shares soar off third quarter revenue beat. And guys, who know how important it is to building a brand and driving traffic. And speaking of building a brand, we have Elon Musk now is in charge of Twitter. The old CEO and CFO are out. And the question is Trump going to make a comeback? We know he has his own little social site, Truth Social, but he has nowhere near the amount of followers that he had on Twitter, even though a lot of those were bots. We know that. But still, we know Trump is comical. And we know he's talking about being president, so that's the perfect platform. And then, of course, because Elon is taking over Twitter, Dogecoin has been pumping. We know it's going to pump and dump. But getting over to the indicators, we had yield rates slightly up, but staying below that 4%, and we know that is very important. We had the dollar index slightly up, but we have the VIX down. And we know the VIX is going to be volatile next week. We have the Fed raising rates on the 2nd. So over the next 2 weeks, guys, get your popcorn because it's definitely going to be a movie. We have rates being raised next week. And then, of course, we have midterms the following week. But, guys, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful day.
Back to Twitter. China reacting to Elon Musk's takeover of the social media platform. Joining us to talk about the potential impact of President Xi's messaging about China to the world is Eunice Yoon. Hey, Eunice.
Hey, Joe. Well, like over there in the U.S., Musk's takeover of Twitter is a top trending topic here in China. The general feeling online is that under Musk management, the discourse under Twitter is going to become much more like social media here, people are saying. In other words, much more pro-Beijing. Now, the fear, of course, has been that human rights activists as well as China critics has been that because Musk and Tesla are so dependent on the Chinese market, that could influence how Musk manages the content on the site. In fact, last year, China accounted for a quarter of Tesla's revenue. And since China, which is, of course, the world's largest car market, will continue to dominate the EV space, a lot of analysts believe that Tesla won't even be able to meet its global sales target without China. Now, as we know, Musk has been forging very close relationships with Chinese authorities, and the Chinese authorities have been very supportive of Musk's investment. As an example, in an interview with the Financial Times, Musk had suggested that Taiwan should be a special administrative region of China, and that triggered praise from the Chinese ambassador in D.C. In fact, the ambassador has been elevated just as of this weekend to be among the top trusted cadres of President Xi, and there's been several rumors that he's going to be returning to Beijing. Now, today, the foreign ministry said that it wouldn't comment on the takeover, but again, there are many people here who believe that that Twitter under Musk's management might not stop some of what they see as misinformation campaigns by Beijing. Joe?
Chevron just out with earnings. CNBC's Pippa Stevens has the number. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. It's a top and bottom line beat for Chevron. The company reporting net income of $11.2 billion, which is slightly shy of the second quarter's record $11.6 billion. The figure up 84% year over year as oil companies continue to benefit from elevated prices. Adjusted EPS coming in at $5.56, while analysts were looking for $4.81. Revenue hitting $66.64 billion, ahead of the expected $58.22 billion. That's up about 50% year over year, although down slightly compared to the second quarter. CEO Michael Wirth noting the company is growing its supplies. Production in the Permian hit a quarterly record, up 12% from last year. Worldwide, net oil equivalent production rose to 3.03 million barrels per day during Q3, up from 2.9 million during Q2. Chevron also repurchased $3.75 billion worth of shares during the third quarter, which is more than 1% of shares outstanding. Joe?
All right, Pippa, pretty good results. We just had a long conversation about that. Obviously, what's happening around the world was good for U.S. oil companies and international oil companies as well. And it almost looks like, profiting over the misery inflicted on the rest of the world by Vladimir Putin and other issues. But what are you going to do? It is what it is. Thank you for that report. We'll be talking about it all morning long.
All right, you heard from Chevron. Now ExxonMobil out with its numbers, and it is a big beat. They came in with an adjusted profit number of $4.45 a share. That beat what the street was looking for of just $3.79. Revenue was a little light of forecast, but this is always a weird revenue number because not that many of the analysts put in estimates for revenue when it comes to them. You're talking about some big numbers. Earnings of $19.7 billion for the quarter. That did include some net favorable items, about $1 billion associated with the completion of XTO Energy Canada and Romania upstream affiliate divestments. CapEx, capital exploration, $5.7 billion for the quarter, and that brings the number for 2022 to date to $15.2 billion. That's on track, they say, with their full-year guidance of $21 to $24 billion. The company says that they achieved their best ever refining throughput in North America and the highest globally since 2008. So those calls for additional production, this is kind of saying what they're putting up with those numbers. They talked about record Permian production of nearly 560,000 oil equivalent barrels a day. Total production there increasing 50,000 oil equivalent barrels per day. They also are talking about raising their fourth quarter dividend to 91 cents a share. That's an increase of 3 cents a share. So part of what they're doing in terms of spending more on CapEx, yes, spending more on production, but also spending more to give back to the shareholders. We're going to be speaking with Darren